So, if you want to save time and you want to remove yourself from fulfillment, this is the most important thing that you'll need for your agency. And it's one type of automation, and it allows your team to work completely on autopilot. It's called status updates. And these are the automations that we made for a short form agency that helped them completely automate the entire onboarding and editing process. So in this video, what I'm going to do is show you what they are and build one from scratch so that by the end of this video, you can do it yourself. So one thing to note, you do need to have a centralized place where all pending work can be seen. You need to dynamically be able to tag the right people when new work begins, and you need to have outlined your entire system. Those are the main caveats to what I'm about to say, because this is the icing on top, which is kind of the finished part of the system, but you need all of that back-end infrastructure in place anyways in order to be able to do it. So if you haven't done one or two, I have a playlist called 10x my client capacity, which you can go through if you just click on the link in the if you just click on the link and just visit my channel, especially the how I'd make a landing page agency from scratch video, because that will handle not only most of 1 and 2, but also some of what I'm about to cover as well. And if you haven't done number 3, which is outline your entire system, that's part of my service, but I don't have a video on that just yet. So if you're looking for a video version of it, I am making that soon. But click any of the links in the description or just DM me on Twitter or LinkedIn, and I'll give you some pointers and I'll show you around, and I'll also help you outline this for yourself. So this is what it's like when you don't have status updates, and pay attention to the yellow boxes, because the yellow boxes are where manual work on your part is required. Creating a campaign yourself. This whole idea is based on what a cold email agency would do. So if you are doing some level of outbound marketing, which is on an automated platform like Instantly or Smart Lead or something along those lines, this is the general way that you would go about doing things. One, you'd create the campaign. You'd usually make some sort of campaign yourself inside of your project management system, and you would manually put in all the information, whether it be all the data on who the target market is and what the lead list is meant to be, who you're reaching out to, what the copy is meant to be. All of those things are going to be just outlined there. Then you have to tell your campaign manager to create the copy and build the lead lists. Then you're going to have to remember to upload the campaign to Smart Lead. Then you're going to have to double check yourself that the campaign is good to go, and then you're going to have to turn it on. Then you need to tell the inbox manager that you have to respond to the incoming emails that will be arriving due to the campaign that's just gone out. And then, because the inbox manager is going to be doing their own work willy-nilly and you're not going to know what's going on there, you're going to have them tell you that new calls were booked and how many calls were booked. So there's a lot of back and forth, and there's a lot of wasted time because people don't know what's going on. When you do have status update systems in place, things work way more seamlessly, and this is some of the stuff that's possible. When an onboarding form is filled out, a new campaign can be created with all of the information based on exactly what I mentioned just prior. A campaign manager can be assigned and alerted to create the campaign. They can go off and create the campaign, and then once the campaign copy and or CSV for the lead lists and sheets and stuff, once it's been cleaned, once that has been created, they can add the URL or the CSV to the project management card, which will then move the card over in the Kanban to upload. The QA person will be notified to check the campaign. They will then check the campaign and upload it. Then they'll start the campaign. This activation of the campaign will tell the inbox manager that the new campaign is live, and then the inbox manager will do their replies. And once they're doing their replies, if a new call is booked, that will create a pop-up inside of the client communications channel. And then when the client takes the call, because you have information as to when that call took place, 30 minutes after the call is taken, a trigger can be set, which will then send an interactive notification to ask the client whether the call was qualified or not. And when the campaign is 50% complete, whilst the inbox manager is doing what they're doing, the team can be alerted to audit the results and then create a new campaign. And then that will create a new card, or that will lead to certain manual activities. So you can see how things are way different when you just have a few notifications popping up here, there, and everywhere. This in and of itself, if you have a team, if you don't have this, is what's stopping your team from just being able to get on with the work, and also setting a cadence where all you do is just jump on semi-regular meetings with your team to say, hey, how's this going? How's this going? How's this going? But from afar and from a glance, you can see everything that's occurring. The one thing that you can do to keep the ball rolling automatically with your team is just to notify them when there's new work. And that's exactly what all of those things are. And that's where status update systems come into play. They do this by daisy chaining activity across an entire system. So one thing that you need to pay attention to is the activity types. So I covered this in a previous video as well, but all types of fulfillment, just in general, all types of deliverables that can be created fall under the creation of those deliverables fall under one of four categories: assembly lines, funnels, event handlers, and asynchronous activity. So assembly lines are just what goes in always comes out, one single deliverable. So whether it be emails, flows, landing pages, websites, insert, whatever it may be. Text, it could be a form of text, a form of code, a form of email, whatever it could be, but it's the same sequence of activities, low variety with extreme depth, and measured by quantity and quality. Then you have funnels, which is what goes in doesn't always come out, but it's still a pipeline essentially. Same sequence of activities, but quality and quantity are also the cornerstones, and quality comes in the form of qualification. If something doesn't meet a certain criteria, it falls off the funnel. It doesn't last the entire way. Then you have event handlers, and event handlers are all about speed to response. It's quality and speed being the cornerstones there. They're both paramount. You have to take one thing and then resolve it, and there's always the same sequence of activities. And then there's asynchronous, where there's high variety, but there's low depth. There's a different sequence of activities, and there's often loads of blockers. One thing blocks another thing. And it usually means that certain activities are also spread across multiple departments or teams as well as just people. These status updates are responsible for making everything move in every system, but the system where it makes the most, where it has the most, it's the 80-20 for the entire system as far as autonomy is concerned, is with assembly lines, because what goes in always comes out. Quality and speed are also very, very important things that need to be maintained. And when you have the status updates, you stop you reduce the stopgap between when certain things are meant to happen and when they actually do happen. If your fulfillment team are alerted when action is required, they'll work on the deliverable until it passes to the next person. And these alerts look a certain way. And the way that I'd like to describe it is the CAN principle. Every notification must have context, an action, a notification, and a navigation. And the way that it works is, the context is very simply, what is this about? What is this? And you can see from here in this one, what I've got inside of this notification is the scope. This is personal for us. The scope of the automation in and of itself. So when you click on the reply, it pulls up a bunch of information from the Airtable card describing what is this, what's the definition of done, what does it look like when it's complete, so on and so forth. If I put that in the main notification, it would just muddy the entire thing and it would look horrible. And if there is conversation happening in this exact same Slack channel, having all of that information there is just not going to be helpful. So I put it inside of the thread. You can also get some context from the title with the client name, because I've got here new project for blank. Then you have the action, and the action is click here, visit the board, do this, do so and so for more, click here for more details, go to this inside of this and search for this. And this will allow you to direct someone who knows that they need to go somewhere, but is, not looking, not paying attention, or may just be new. And I like to use the because heuristic. Click here for more details. Click here because this is where everything is held, because it gives, again, more context and more power for the notification in and of itself. Then you have notifications, and these are the actual alert systems that you use for the system that you're using. So if it's an email, sending the email in and of itself is the notification that you would need. But in Slack, you have tagging people, you have at here, you have at channel, you have at sub team, whatever it could be, and they involve these types of codes, and you can put these inside of make, etc., in order to basically just shout at the entire channel just for certain things. And they pop up on your phone and on your computer no matter what you're doing, and they pop up in the sidebar so that there's no reason for people to miss these things. And when there's involved users in play, it's really useful to have them see this so that they know that some certain things can be done. And then there's a navigation part, which is just hyperlinking out directly to the activity so that they can get started. So you can see here, this one here for the edited footage. Number one, which is the context. This is what it is. This is a quality check. Number two, which is the action. This is, can one of you guys give this video a quality check? Number three is the notification. And these are all of the people that were tagged. And here you can see that the developer here is tagged. And then for navigation, this is the hyperlink. So we've got the hyperlink here, which is the link to frame, and you've got the hyperlink here, which is the link to the Kanban for project management. Having clean notifications themselves and reducing the number of notifications only to the essential is how you reduce alert fatigue. You always have to keep that in mind, because if I send a very, very messy, very, very big notification, which doesn't tag me, or not even doesn't tag me, but tags the entire channel when it's not relevant to the channel, or doesn't tag the right people, then what will happen is I'll learn to ignore it. And if I learn to ignore it, then I will learn to let work sit on my plate that doesn't need to sit on its plate. It needs to be done, and there's usually a time limit or a due date involved. So you need to always keep this in mind, and that's the reason why we craft them the way that we craft them. So I'm going to outline how to make a status update system for your own agency, and it's in 3 parts. 1, determine your triggers, because remember, we're daisy chaining things here. Number 2, flesh out your actions, and number 3, create your messaging. So this is good timing, because what I'm going to do now is go through what this would look like for I'm going to go back into the landing page system basically to determine exactly how this is meant to look. So here's where we're starting. We have the pages themselves, which is a Kanban board that I've made from earlier. And all of this information is, as you can see, an assembly line. Everything goes from left to right, and there's extreme depth because there are a lot of stages here. Now with these stages, let me grab the Lucid chart again. With these stages, there's certain things that will happen every single time. So the same way that I created inside of here, you have, what it looks like with notifications, which is this. This one is obviously for a cold email system. I've already outlined what this would look for a landing page system. So it starts off with a new page being created and a designer being assigned and alerted, or even the team being assigned and alerted. And then they make the page in Figma, add the URL to the Figma link, and then from there, the Figma link moves the card over in the Kanban to QA. QA person's notified. The QA person then checks and confirms. Then the card moves again, and then once it's moved, the developer that's assigned gets notified and is told to begin working. Then it moves over here. The card moves in the Kanban again, and then that leads to the QA person being alerted to check the final page. And then once the page is checked and it's completed, the page is shared with the client. If the client approves it, then the team is alerted to complete the page handover, or just moves into page finished for my system. And if it's not approved, then the team is alerted to make the changes, and things move all the way back here to where the developer needs to confirm or make amendments to the page in the web builder. So that's how you outline the system in part. This is a very truncated version of what I do with clients anyways. The ones that I do with clients end up being way, way larger, way more intricate, involving actual team members and what they're meant to be doing, and involving multiple systems and multiple parts of the fulfillment department as well. So this is one small part of the, creating the page aspect for this landing page agency. There will obviously be certain parts with CRO. If I was to do this in real life, it would be certain parts with CRO, certain parts with onboarding, certain parts with making sure that, because I do with CRMs and stuff like that as well. All of that stuff kind of gets outlined in way more detail. But for the purposes of this video, this is where we are going to go. So with that information, we also have, or should I say not also, but because of this line here, which is the automation line, what we also have is a set of daisy chains. You can see one automation here, another automation here, one automation here, another here, another here, which leads to this one as well. So there's around 5 or 6 automations here. So what I'm going to do in this video is build 5 of them. And I'm going to build these 5 based on this system. New page, whenever the copy is finished, whenever the page is ready for design, whenever the page is ready for development, and whenever development is finished. And these are all very, very simple automations, which you can see from here. When a new page / page card is created, send it to make, search for the most available staff, assign them, and then alert the chat. When the copy link is updated, we send it to make, and then we alert the ops manager. When the card is moved to the design page, we send it to make and alert the assigned designer. Same thing with the developer for the developer part, and then for the development finished in the development finished automation, we also alert the ops manager. So very simple, very easy, very straightforward. I'm just going to get to building. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump right into make.com. So the first automation that we need to make, which is this one here, the new page, card created, send to make, search for the staff, assign them, alert them in chat. This one was already made, and this one was made in the how I make landing page agency setups video that I made. So there'll be a link to that down below somewhere. But the whole idea behind this is that when a new page has been created, we have it so that the automations inside of Airtable will send a webhook to make. Now, the way that it works as well is that because more information is going to be added once the record is created, maybe the client's been missed out or something along those lines, we put a wait function in here, which is some scripts that you can just chat GPT your way through. Then we find the record again, and then we run a script to make. The main thing about all of these is that the trigger starts in Airtable, and the action inside of Airtable is always to run a script. And then that script holds a webhook, and this webhook is a webhook that's made inside of Make. And then all of the actions will happen inside of Make because there's way more flexibility here, and you can push this out to Slack in a very dynamic fashion. So we're going to do the exact same thing with all 5, and I'm going to work through this the way that I would work through it for basically any of my clients. So first thing is, so we're going to assume that this is done, and because if you want to see that, you can see the video. I don't need to go through it too much. I can go through really briefly because we will need to what it looks like when it's done. But the first thing that needs to happen is we need to determine when the copy is finished, we need to send it to Make and alert the ops manager. So what I have here is whenever the copy link is updated. So if I go into the interfaces and I go into page, let's say we're here in write copy and new page 2. Someone has gone in and, you know, if I go in and I make a document and I say that this is the page copy, I can go in, type some stuff and say that this is the copy. Now, what I want to have is that the copywriter would have gone off and made the copy inside of a Google Sheet or a Google Doc. Once the Google document link has been added here, it will move the card and then alert the ops manager to check the copy, because according to our system, we need to alert the ops manager whenever the copy link has been updated, because that is our trigger. So once we have the right trigger, we can then go off and design the workflow such that the copywriter, all they need to do is when they get alerted that there's new work, write the copy and stick the link in the relevant page. And then once they've done that, it will get sent to the right person, and that's how things will go. Therefore, that means the trigger would need to be when a certain field is updated. And when that field is updated, we need to run this script, and then inside of the automation, we need to alert the relevant person. So what we're going to do here is say copy complete, send to ops manager. The trigger is going to be when a record is updated inside of pages, and the field is going to be copy link. So when the copy link is updated, we will then send and run a script and then send it to Make. So I'll leave that there, and then what I'll do is I will add a link, or I'll add a record. So I'll do this later. We'll go to new page 2, and then I'll add this copy to this link here, and then that can be used. So it's called new page 2. That will be used then to make the automation, because when I want to choose a record, new page 2, I know has a link inside of the copy. So now what I want to do is just literally, I can just copy this exact same link here, this exact same copy here, which is the script that was used beforehand, replace this, and then get a record ID. And I need to add an input variable because we're adding an input variable called record ID. And that value is going to be the Airtable record ID. Now, do you need to be able to write webhooks? Absolutely not, because if I just go and Google send Airtable webhook to make, how to send data to a webhook URL, Airtable community. If you click on here and just scroll down, you'll find the exact same copy or the exact same code. And this code is what you'll use to send anything off to make. And the reason why we do this, instead of using the Airtable look for new responses timed version, is because that runs it basically queries your Airtable every 10-15 minutes, and that rinses a bunch of credits you don't need to rinse. So now what we need to do, now that we have a trigger and we have a script, we now need a webhook. So we're going to make a webhook, and this webhook is going to be copy complete alert team, copy complete alert ops manager. So we want to then click on Airtable, click watch responses, and then I'm going to add, and then we'll call this copy complete test. Click save, and then this will give us a webhook address. We want to copy that, and then we want to go into here, and we want to paste it, and then that will replace it. And now we can use the record ID here, which is the Airtable record. Once we finished editing, we can now turn it on, and then we can test the action. But before we test the action, let me click on here, click OK, save it, run once, and let it just spin up something. And then we'll test the action, and what it should do is it should send us the record ID of the page to this Airtable for us to get the response, which we can see right here. And then the next thing we need to do is we need to get the record, because we only have a record ID. That's the only thing that we received. So we need to go here, click the base, which is client fulfillment. Oh wait, no, this is the wrong attachment. This is called example landing page, agency system. And then we'll take the table, which is pages. And then from pages, we'll take the record ID. And this record ID is the exact same. This record ID is the name of the page. So get page. And now that we've gotten the page, what we want to do is we want to update this same record by moving it over in the Kanban. So this one again, we'll just click example, landing page agency system. The table is pages. And the record ID is the same record ID as the start. And the only thing we want to do is we want to change the status. And the status is moving to check copy. That's all we want to do. That's all we want to change. We just click go here. And now, and let me rename this so that it's easy to follow. Move in Kanban. And then once we've done that, we then need to, from the page, we need to, again, get a record, and this record is going to be the ops manager. So, example, landing page agency system. The table this time is team, and the record ID is the assigned ops manager from the get page part of this. So, ops manager name, this. And what that will do, is it will get the ops manager's name. Definitely getting a little bit ill. That will get the ops manager's name, and what that will do is give us the Slack ID from the data. Because if I go into team, if I want to just grab whoever's available as an ops manager, what I'm going to get is not just their name and their job title, but I'm also going to get their Slack user ID and everything else in relation to it. So now I can take this and I can use this to create my Slack message and dynamically tag Josephine whenever anything is ready to go. Josephine being the ops manager. So now that I've gotten the ops manager, I can go into Slack, create a message, and then if I select from the list, I'm just going to pick from a different, I'm going to pick from just an automations channel, which is just the default channel. If you wanted this to spin into different requisite channels, then inside of your team, you would need a channel ID for either the client or the team members themselves. So let's say you had all of your developers in one channel, all of your designers in one channel, all of your ops managers and account managers in one channel. That would be the channel that they would be added. That would be added here. And you can grab that information, and once you grab that information, you can then basically just, again, whenever, not just make this dynamic as far as who you're messaging, but where you're messaging as well. And that would be, instead of select from list, it will be enter manually. But we're going to keep everything inside of automations for the most part. Now, text. I'm going to open up show advanced settings here, and I'm going to show you things that I always do. So the first thing I always do is I remove unfell media content and I remove unfell primary text-based content. Because what this will do is, if I leave them open, what it will do is it will just expand all of my links. And when it expands all of my links, I won't be able to remove alert fatigue, because there'll be links and there'll be hyperlinks to different places. And if I'm hyperlinking to part of our Airtable, it will just come up with the metadata for Airtable when you look it up online, which is just going to bulk up the message, and it doesn't need to be there. So I keep these, and then I link the names, and then I remove reply broadcast because I'm not using threads in this message. And even if I was, I'm not broadcasting the thread message back into the channel for everybody to see. I don't need to do that. So that's the first thing. Second thing is the username. So I'm always using a bot. I'm never using a person, because if I'm using a person, then for example, if it was me, if I was using me here, then half of what I say is automated, and that is nonsense. I would rather have a bot come in and do this with a particular name, because I can give it a name and I can give it an emoji. So it personalizes what the thing is just a little bit more. So for the username here, this one is just going to be called check copy for insert client name, which is going to be under the get page. It's not there. Inside okay, so we'll just put check copy for now. And what I'm going to do is run it and then see if I can feed that into it. Then we want to get an emoji. So what I like to use is emojibase.dev. And then I like to filter for I am Cal, which is Slack. And then I just search for something. So let's say, so right now this is a check stage. So I could type in check. I don't want to put a warning sign in it. I'm going to put a monocle in it. We'll just use the face of a monocle. We can take that. Copy from Slack into icon emoji. And now we need to put context, an action, and a navigation, and a notification here. So we already have a tiny bit of context. Check copy for X. And then what I can do here is I can basically write out what would need to be done. So it would be the person, which is Slack user ID. So it's arrow bracket, open arrow bracket, at Slack user ID, close arrow bracket. Give this copy a quick check. And then it will usually just be almost like so-and-so, almost like key value pairs, like client, this is the client. Page, this is the page. Link, this is the link. Link, give this copy a quick check. That's kind of the format that I normally use. And I use underscores for italics and 1 asterisk for and then 1 asterisk for bold. So I put all of these in bold. Client goes in bold. Page goes in bold. Link goes in bold. And then the client is, where's the client name? I think what I'm going to do is actually just grab information from the client. So get the page. I'm also going to get the client. So add a module, Airtable, get a record. And this record is going to be a client. And I'm also building this haphazardly, simply because you're meant to check as you go along. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to truncate this, and then I'm going to check over time. So client associated is the associated client. We'll click here, click OK. Now what I'm going to do is unlink this, and I'm going to test it again so that I can feed the information through and make sure that everything is working, because certain things break. So I'll click run. It's already happened. So we'll use the existing data. So now I have the records, I have the page, and I also have the name of the client, contract duration, company name, and all of this other stuff. Great. So then I can move it in the Kanban and get the ops manager. I like to check everything before the Slack message, because sometimes the Slack message breaks and it makes me think that all of these are broken when sometimes that's not the case. So let me test one more time, and then let me click run, and then that should work through all 5 of these. And then that will give me an understanding as to whether this is working as it should be or not. And it looks like it's working. So yep, we got Josephine, the ops manager. We've got, hasn't moved in the Kanban. Remember, what was the name of the page again? The name of the page was new page 2. So if I just, I'm going to open this in a new tab, see what the interface looks like. That's the dashboard. Let's go to the pages, new page 2. So it's already moved, which is nice and easy. So now we know that all of these work. We can probably now find, so I just rename this as get client. We can now get the information from the rest of these steps. Get page, get client. So the client's name is Prime. The page is called new page 2. So I'll just type in new because I know that that's a new page. That's the name of the page. I like to take them all from the same place. And then the link is going to be copy link, which is this. Now, what I want to do is, instead of having the link here just bare, I will basically put this inside of its own, the URL formatting, which is open bracket, link, bar, link, or the words that you want to put in, and then close bracket. So if I put the copy link here, it should say this. So click here for a link to the copy. And I'm going to take this, because this is now the action. Person, click here for a link to the copy. And then I'm going to put that in italics. I'm actually going to take this out of there. So it's click here, remove that, for a link to the copy, full stop. And then I'm going to add my asterisk in here. And that is the full, that is everything there. So now check copy for inside of the username. What we're going to do is we're going to put the campaign name here. I'm actually going to put the client name here. That's probably the easiest thing for me to do. So client is Prime. And that's the Slack message right there. So if I run it one more time and use the existing data, go. Slack message, client Prime, new page, click here for a link to the copy. So now let me pull up Slack. And this is the notification here. Check copy for Prime, client Prime page, new page 2, click here for a link to the copy. This takes me straight to this link here, which is great. And obviously this isn't a real person, so it's come up with just the bar here. But the fact that it's come up with the bar here lets me know that this is reading user information. So I'm just going to leave it like that. That's perfectly fine. We now know that this is working the way it's meant to. Whenever the copy is complete, the ops manager will be alerted. So I'm going to go through and basically show you what the rest of these are going to look like, because we are now down one of them. So if I go into Lucid Chart, I can then click this and mark this as done. So it's and again, it's the same thing, but instead it's for development being finished. This is basically the exact same automation. And then we need one for when a card is moved into the design page status, and one for the card is moved to the develop page status. So what I'll do is I'll make this one, and I'll have to copy this one, and then I'll make this one and then copy it to here, and then I'll show you what those look like. So we'll do page ready for design, and then you'll get the gist of it, because it's going to be the exact same automation. So card moved to the design page. So the first thing we need to do there is determine what the trigger is. When the card is moved to the design page, what does that mean? It means when a card is moved into slot 30. So when a card is moved into slot 30, we need to then send another script over. So what I'm going to do is duplicate this and then rename it design page, send to designer. So the trigger is going to change because it is when a record is updated, it is when a page is updated, but we're watching a different field this time. We're not watching the copy link, we're watching the status. And we actually have a different, we're not just watching for any time that record is updated, we're watching for a particular time when it's updated. So what I'm going to do is add advanced logic, and this conditional logic is for when certain conditions are met. Now this is going to be configured as such. We now need to determine that the record that is being updated is status, and it needs to be when the status is design page. So when the status is design page, we then run a script, and this script is again the exact same type of script. We just need to change the webhook URL. So we'll go back in to make, and then we'll go down to the folder that we were working from. I can just turn this on now. Go back. Can turn that on, and then we're going to create a new scenario, and this new scenario again is going to be Airtable, and it's going to be a watch responses, and this is not copy complete, this is design ready webhook, or new design, new page design. Click save, give us the webhook URL, copy that, go over to the automation, take the entirety of the URL up to the question mark, replace it, finish editing, click OK, run once, and then give it a test. Now, I need to pick a record before I test it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into pages, and I'm going to move new page 2 into design page. And then from there, I can choose a record. In fact, I'll use the suggested record because it should just find it immediately. It's actually just found test record. Let me just use new page 2. All right, number 30. So we've chosen that record. Now, if the status is 30 design page, we're going to run the script. Let's test the action, and it should send the exact same information over. And then it's going to be the exact same steps. You need to get the page, you need to get the team, and then you need to get the client. So what I'm going to do is, so we need to get the client one more time. We need to get the record first, and then we'll get the client. So I'll go back in here, click on base, and then choose the base, which is meant to be the example landing page agency system. And then with the table, we'll create pages, and we'll get the pages and then get the record ID from module number 1. We'll rename this to get page. Then we need to get the team. We'll get the client first, and then we'll get the team, just to keep things a little bit more orderly, so we can then send the right message to the right person. So table is pages, and then record ID is for number 1. No, the record ID is not pages, it's clients. And then clients will be under associated client. Click OK, rename, get client. And then the next step is to get the designer. Let me double check that. Designer, yes. So we need to get the designer, which is under here. So it's going to be, again, the same base. Table is going to be team. And then the record ID is going to be designer, which is designer name. And then from there, we can rename, get designer, and then double check that nothing's broken by running a very, very, very quick test. Let me just change the name of this automation to design page alert designer, and run this. And then whilst I'm running it, run the script again. And then this will give us an understanding of if we've got the right information in each spot. So design page, new page 2, that's the right page. Get the client is still prime, and then the designer is Jacob. Perfect. So now we have all of the people. We then go into Slack and we create a message in Slack. And again, we're going to the automations page as opposed to any particular private channel or something along those lines. Click on automations, and then we want our automation to have the same things appear here. So don't unfurl media content, don't unfurl primary text-based content, link the names, don't leave reply broadcast empty, and then the username is going to be new design for company name, and the company name is Prime. And the reason why we don't use this here instead of this is because this is a record ID. It's not the name. You have to get this record ID to get all of the attributes for this record. Basically, you're just getting all of the other columns for this row, and then that will give you the actual text-based company name as well as the text-based client name and all of the other items and attributes on that part of the table. So that's the new design for the company name. The icon for this design, I'm going to paintbrush. So I'm going to go paint. We'll call it lower left paintbrush. And then we'll go straight back into Airtable again. Click here for the icon emoji. And then we will create the text. Now, the text for this one is always going to be, because we already have a bit of the context here, we just need an action, navigation, and a notification. So the right person needs to be tagged. So we'll just start off with the notification first. So the person that we're tagging is the designer. Start the design process here. And then we'll flesh that out over some time. So we already know who the client is. Page is going to be this. And then let's say we want the due date to come up as well. Let's put these in bold. So the page is bold, the due date is bold, and the action item is also bold. So the due date is going to be on the main card, and currently is, okay, we have a created time. Do we even have a due date? We don't have one. So I'm actually going to add that in a second when we test it again. But the page is campaign name. So we'll type in campaign name from here. So that's the page, that's the due date, and this is the user. Start the design process dash click here to visit the board. Click here and search for campaign name for further details. And then I'll put the due date at the bottom. So you can see that all of these notifications can look however way you want them to, and they don't have to be big at all. It's just, hey, start the design process. Click here and search for the campaign name for further details. And here is going to be hyperlinked directly to the interface. Because one thing with these interfaces, this could be a skill issue. This could just be how it's created, but there's no way of being able to programmatically find interface pages. You can find records and you can build URLs for records, but what that will do is it will take you to the data, which will just take you here and open it up like this. Instead of actually opening it up inside of the interface where things are clean and where there may be certain permissions at play. So I can't just click here and then open up the detail. I have to click off of this and then show them that this is what the interface page is and tell them where to search. So I'll put that in there, and then it will say click here and search for the campaign for further details. And you can see that we're building a lot of stuff in here and it looks a little bit messy, but it comes out incredibly clean. So we have the lower left paintbrush, new design for company name, Slack user ID, start the design process, click here and search for this campaign name for further details. Due date is this. Click OK. Now, this is called Alert Designer. And I'm going to add a due date to new page 2. Where's the due date? Oh, I had to add the due date. So here is the due date. The due date is, let's just call it Monday. And now when I run the test again, by going back to view the data and then automations and then back into the design page, Center Designer. Now, what will happen is if I choose the record and the record is the same new page 2, it should choose it with the updates. And then if I test the code again, it will ask me for the information, and then I can just click here to send the message off. So let's use the existing data and let's see how it comes up. New design for Prime, blank, start the design process. Click here and search for new page 2 for further details. This is the due date. So it's very bold, which is fine. The paintbrush came out, new design for Prime. So it's very, very small. It's very, very, like, you can see everything in one place, which is great. What I want to do is I want to separate these up a little bit. So start the design process is going to be the first part. Full stop. And then I want this in italics. And then I want here in bold. So we'll underscore everything for the second paragraph, and then we'll put a bold, we'll put the asterisk around the hyperlink and the here. And then we'll click on that. And we'll run it one more time. Let's test the action. And it's given us blank, start the design process. Click here and search for new page 2 for further details. Great. Absolutely great. And because of the way that this is organized, you won't be able to see that until I do this. So we're now hiding private user info just because these people don't exist. But if I put my own link in here, it would tag me in particular, and then it would show that. So that is design page. We've also created one for when copy is complete. If you do this across the entire assembly line, everything will work the way that it's meant to for every single person. So just to kind of summarize everything, the first thing you need to do is you need to find out exactly what needs to be built. Now, what needs to be built is dependent on the documentation you have of your ideal process. Knowing that this is something that is doable means that you know that this is something that can be created for your own system. So it's something that you know that you can automate now that you've seen this video. Therefore, go off and when you design your processes, design it with that in mind. Design it with the ability to send automations via statuses in this way, via status updates in this way, in order to get what you would want from your system at large. So again, this is something that I do with a lot of people anyways. And what is able to be automated tends to be the limiting factor between how well people are able to make these process documentations. So like I said earlier, just message me on Twitter, LinkedIn, or click any of the links below, and I can help you understand what that would be for your business. But the whole idea is you outline what you do and you outline what the individual members of your team are doing. So normally what this would be is it would be a few lines longer, and instead of it being, you know, team and then automation, it would be copywriter, designer, developer, and then the rest of it. So that is how you would outline this. Once you've outlined it, understand what the daisy chains are. And the daisy chains are usually one trigger, which is someone's action, which then moves the card and alerts someone else. That person then continues their work, initiates another trigger, which would then daisy chain the rest of the activity to then send some work to someone else until the process is finished. So that's number one, which is the process documentation. Number two is finding out what your triggers are. And number three is basically building these automations out and building out the actions that you would need, scoping them out correctly, and then building that into your system. So if you are looking for more information on automations that are like this, because I did miss out things like approval, onboarding, contract flows, onboarding form flows, a lot of these kinds of things, just check the links somewhere. You'll see them in different places, and you can see exactly how you can 10 extra client capacity through automations. And soon I'll be putting out more information on how to use internal apps to do things that you didn't think were possible that are now possible.